As usual, we gathered here today to listen to another dispensation of the Lord Buddha's teaching. We are ever so privileged, ever so fortunate to come across this Dhamma, the teaching of the Supremely Enlightened One, the Perfect One, the Omniscient One, the Undefeatable One, the Unvanquished One, the Perfect One. So before we commence, let us take a moment to recognize, reflect on and acknowledge that it is His Dhamma that we have this privilege of discussing, understanding. He is the Master. Bearing that in mind, let us all pay homage to the Supremely Enlightened Lord Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And also before we commence, let's take a moment to observe the 5 precepts. And as usual, I'd like to remind you all that this is another occasion on which we are having to observe the precepts. There will and may have been many times over the past week, or perhaps since you last observed the precepts, where an opportunity arose, you let down your guard, and you let the defilements come into your mind, and your precepts were broken. That in itself is shameful. We must accept that, we must acknowledge that, in the hope that we may never have to observe these precepts ever again, in the hope that through the understanding and comprehension of the Dhamma, the virtue entailed within these precepts become the very fabric of our conscience. Let us take a moment once again to observe these precepts. And when you observe these precepts, I will recite the precepts one at a time, as well as the lines that you would recite to seek homage in the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. And what I want you to do is pay attention to how the Swamin Wahanse recites them, and where you need to emphasize certain syllables, because otherwise the meaning behind them is lost. So, paying close attention to that, being aware of what it is that you are saying and why you are saying it, let us now take a moment to observe the precepts. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Saranāgamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi, Adinādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi, Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi, Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi, Suramera majjapama datthana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. තිසරණේන සද්දින් පංචශීලං ධම්මං සාදුකං සුරක්ඛිතං කତ୍වා අප්පමාදේන සම්පාදේත. Okay, you may all be seated now. Most venerable members of the Mahasangha, the distinguished gathering, and those who are joining us from across the globe. Before we commence, let us all take a moment to invite all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons and the dead. Wherever they may be, it is an opportunity for them to rejoice in this meritorious deed, earn and acquire merit. It is also an opportunity for them to listen to the Dhamma, comprehend the Dhamma and attain the bliss of Nibbana. So, before we commence, reminding yourselves of all beings who you will have come across in this infinitely long journey in samsara, your mothers, fathers, brothers, uncles, sisters, nephews, grandparents and so on and so forth. Anyone who might have helped you, assisted you, supported you in a time of difficulty, or perhaps to set your life straight, set your life on the right path. Whatever capacity in which they might have helped you, it is now an opportunity for us to repay those debts that we owe them. It is an opportunity for us to be grateful for whatever that is they might have done for us. Reminding ourselves also that today we have been born human in the blissful plane, but perhaps one of the reasons that we have been able to achieve this goal is that there may have been those who we came across in our previous lives who committed unmeritorious deeds, unwholesome deeds, just on our behalf. And they committed deeds, and in doing so they saved us from committing such deeds. Today, as a result, we have been born in the blissful plane, but alas, they are today in the woeful plane, and they will be there for a very long time, if not for merits that we are able to confer to them. So, reminding ourselves that this is a great opportunity for us to be grateful to all those beings that we have come across in samsara, anyone who will have helped us, supported us, assisted us. Let us invite those beings to join us. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes. And for all beings who have been born in the blissful planes, may, through the course of this sermon, they be able to understand this Dhamma, listen to the Dhamma and comprehend the Dhamma, and be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So now, as I make this invitation, I request you all, I invite you all to extend that invitation out in your hearts and in your minds. Invite all those beings to join us, witness this meritorious deed, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Sadhammang Munirajasansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta Dhamma savana kalo ayang bhadanta. And also before we commence, let us take a moment once again to reflect on who we were before we came across this Dhamma. As you will know for yourselves, your lives have changed beyond your wildest imagination. Perhaps you don't recognize the person who you used to be before this Dhamma came into your lives. So if that is how you were in this birth, then consider how you might have been in this infinite long journey in samsara, having only had the association of ignoble, immoral people who defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, desire, aversion and delusion, And having been blinded with avidya and tanha, ignorance and attachment, countless will have been the times we will have offended, abused and desecrated the noble ones, the Aryas. The Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, the Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakurdagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits, as well as the Sambuddha Shasana, the Buddha's dispensation. Any words, actions or thoughts of desecration, abuse we might have directed towards them may today block and hinder our progress in the Dhamma. So prior to us commencing, let us all genuinely accept that this is who we will have been in this infinitely long journey in samsara. We have not all been saints in this infinitely long journey. Let us seek forgiveness from the noble ones, wholeheartedly and honestly and genuinely to ourselves. And finally, before we commence, let us all make a firm resolve. May through the course of this sermon, if there are any points of understanding which you are still requiring in order that you may be able to attain the noble attainments, if there are any gaps in your knowledge, in your understanding that you require to fulfill before you can attain those noble attainments, may through the course of this sermon that Dhamma be expounded, and may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill such gaps and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So with that firm resolve in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. Another week has gone by. You're a week older. When do you count your age? Just on your birthdays? Because that's the only time you grow old, right? On your birthday. Rest of the time you're not aging. As you wait a year and then all of a sudden you've grown old by another year. It's not been happening through the course of the year. It just happens on that one day of the year. That's how we grow old, isn't it? Well, you know the truth. Another week has gone by. Another 7 days. That's 24 hours of 7. Or 7 lots of 24 hours. Many minutes have flung us by. Time is fleeting by and we don't even know it. Just look back at your past week. How did you spend your time? How much of what you did last week was for the purpose of extinguishing the fires of raga, dvesha, moha versus the time you spent indulging yourself in raga, dvesha, moha? Oh, I'm sure you have lots of excuses. But Swaminatha, but someone came round, visitors, and I had no choice. I just had to go and talk to them about all the stuff I've been watching on TV. They forced me to go to the cinema with them. What can I do? Excuses, right? Now, isn't that so interesting? Oh, I catch you every time. Think. What are we doing? You've got to be more mindful than this. You've got to be more aware than this of what's going on. Buddhism is not the study about the universe. It's not study about the cosmos or how planets came into being. It's not a study about the Big Bang or anything like that. You know, at its core, Buddhism is nothing other than the study about oneself. It's a study about yourself. It's a study about who you are. It's a study about how you operate, how your mind functions, how your mind operates. And why? Because of this ignorance of how you work, you get yourself into trouble so many times. This is what Buddhism is about. And to do that, you have to be mindful of how your mind works. If a sound comes from somewhere, why do you feel the urge to turn your head and look at it? Why do you feel the urge to find out what's going on? Why so much curiosity? You have to find some answers. You can't say just because. Well then, if you ask me, Swamin Hansa, why do I go to hell after this life? Well, I'm going to say just because. Is that alright? Then if you come and ask me, why do I suffer? Why am I always finding myself in stress and anxiety? I'm just going to say, well, just because. Is that a reasonable answer? Will you accept that from me? No. Well, if you don't accept that from me, then I think you should push yourselves a little bit harder. Don't do things just because. That's how we've been doing all these things in our lives. Throughout our lives, we've done a lot of things just because, have you not? It doesn't take a lot to turn back and look back at your past. A lot of things that you did just because, and look at where it got you. Now you're suffering the consequences of that. But when the consequences come and bite you on the back, well, they don't come and say just because. You can't turn them back and say, no, actually, you know what? I don't like you. Come back another day. Doesn't work like that. When it's time to bite you on the back, well, it's going to bite you back on the back real hard. So how was last week? I'll tell you what I did last week. About 6 or 7 hours a day was spent in meditation. Much of the rest of the time was spent discussing the Dhamma with my fellow monks at the monastery, or with other ladies and gentlemen like yourselves who come and visit the monastery, preaching to them or talking to them about the Dhamma. So I'm talking about my week, and you can think about what your week was like. Surely you must have done lots of interesting stuff. Far more interesting than how my week would have gone, right? I'm sure. And then there was time I put aside to attend to my requirements, such as the 4 hours I put into sleep nowadays. Actually, it's working pretty well. Remember when I decided I was going to cut down to 4 hours? It's when I met someone just like you. A young gentleman about the age of 35 who I met after one of the sermons. He was a 3-wheel driver. That's his profession. And he was telling me about what a busy life he has. He has a family to feed. He has a job to do. He moonlights whenever he can, which is to do a job during the night as well. Does overtime so he can make sure his children are looked after and they have a future for themselves. And then he says, but when I'm doing all of these things, I never forget to listen to the Dhamma. I always have my earphones plugged in, and I'm constantly listening to the Dhamma. Never missing a moment when I can do whatever I need to do to redeem myself from samsara. So when I was speaking to him, I was reminding myself, I'm doing pretty much the same things. So, we are pretty equal. Also I thought. And then he said, so I only get about 4 hours sleep, Swami Hansa. That was a jaw-dropping moment for me. I said, what? You do all that and you can get away with 4 hours of sleep? That's all you need? He said, yes. At that moment, I confessed to him. I said, oh dear sir, I am so ashamed of myself. I don't do half the things you do to toil your body day and night, and I have to resort to 6 hours of sleep. And I find that pretty pathetic. So from that day, I changed my schedule. And actually, it's going pretty good. It's going pretty well. Because, what I've been thinking about, and I also have a group of young monks who come and meet me at 7 o'clock every morning. Actually, all 4 of these are in that group as well. So I do a personality development exercise with them. Because when they're out in the public and, going to schools and things like that, and living in society, you get that kind of exposure. How? Well, you get told off. That's how. When you make mistakes, you get beaten up. That's how society teaches you what's good and what's bad. But of course, their parents didn't bring them here to get told off or to get beaten up. So there are other means and then there are better ways of teaching young children how to work on their personality. This is not about creating a self and fostering the self, because that's the kind of personality that I used to learn when I was in society. How to build a good ego for yourself. They never said that that's what you were doing. But ultimately, we all know what we were doing. It was feeding our ego every single time. Every time you went on LinkedIn and sent an invite to somebody, you were extending your network. Why? I know so and so. So everyone else in your network knows now that you are connected. Woohoo. Another friend on Facebook. That's always a good addition, isn't it? Another connection. Just so you can show you're connected to other people. All these things feeding our egos. And a lot of skills we learned. How to get the most from your customers. How to trick them, but not even knowing that they're being tricked. So they said that was personality development, but underneath it was all about feeding the ego. So the program that we are doing at the monastery is very different to that. Every morning at 7 o'clock sharp, they have to be there, and I have a clock that I place by this Bodhisattva statue. And if they're a minute late, they have to go back. I will not accept them. Not a minute late. And when they arrive at 7 o'clock, they have to come clean shaven, having brushed and made their beds, and had breakfast, and all that, and have to be there 7 o'clock sharp. A minute late, turn back and go away. So 7 to 8 o'clock, there's a meditation program that I do with them, and then from 8 to 9:30, all the other monks in the monastery come and join us, and then we continue the meditation program. So this is how I make up my meditation. Like I said, about 6 to 7, 8 hours of meditation every day. So they help me and I help them. But that 7 to 8 in the morning, I dedicate for that group of young monks. So we have about 7 of them in the team at the moment. And you can ask them when you get a moment to speak to them. I'm not very lenient. I'm quite tough. If one makes a mistake, who has to suffer? Everyone, yes. If one makes a mistake, everyone has to suffer. The punishment is given to everybody. And the punishment involves doing things for the monastery, as well as the Sambuddhashasana, rendering a service of some kind. It could be sweeping the premises, whatever. And then everyone from time to time is given an opportunity to stand up on the stage and deliver what they understand about the Dhamma to the rest of the group. And then we pose questions. Difficult ones, not easy ones, not like the ones you ask me. We ask difficult questions. Questions that are intended to confuse them. Did I say I was ruthless? I'm not lenient, not with them. Because I want their parents to be proud of them. I want them to be proud of themselves, not through ego. I want them to understand where they have come, why they're here, what they're here to do, why they came into a robe, and what is the purpose of their lives. So these days they've got a project that they're working on. I've split the team in two. So I'm sharing these stories with you because I want you to consider how you spent your week. This is how I spent mine. And how your children might have spent their week. So we've split the team in two. And each team is expected to come up with 3 different ways of explaining and describing the doctrine, the Nyaya Dhamma. Right? Taking one from a Pruthagjana to a Sotapanna. The key doctrine, the fundamental principles of what one needs to understand to go from being a Pruthagjana to a Sotapanna. 3 different ways. And they have to be creative. So you can't just come up and talk about the same stuff that Guru Harmandir talks in his sermons or what I've been talking about. You have to be creative. So they can use craft for that if they wish. They can come up with a drama or some kind of video. They can be as creative as they like. So they've been talking to me, over the past week they've come to me with some of the ideas that they've put together as a team. I'm quite impressed, I must say. Perhaps when they materialize, I'll bring them along on a Sunday and I'll ask them to present to you. Would you like that? Because one of those ideas have to be in English as well. That is one of the caveats. They have to present one of those ideas in English, and I'll give them an opportunity, or rather I'll give you an opportunity to listen to what they have to say. So we'll do that one Sunday when you're here. So these are some of the things I've been doing over the last week. So how was your week? You know, what I remind myself every day is, I used to do quite a lot of personality development and helping people do that in my lay life. How does one give a presentation? How does one negotiate? How does one communicate effectively with others? How to influence people? But a lot of the time, these things I taught and I helped people learn. But these were people who were not interested in the Dhamma. These are not people who were interested in Nibbana. They were people who were just either suppliers or consumers in this world of consumers and suppliers. So all they were interested was in ensnaring somebody else in their trap. That was all they were interested in. Yes, there might have been a little bit of merit, but now I think every word I say is hugely meritorious. It just happens to be because the purpose is entirely different. Chetanaham bhikkhave kammang vadami. It's the intention with which you do it, you say it. Now I know that there will be a lot of you here who do a lot, not just yourselves but your families, to society, to help them prosper and to help them become better citizens of tomorrow. I know that because you come and share those stories with me. And that's great. It's great to do that. And continue doing that. But make sure that in whatever you do, you find an opportunity to give them the gift of Dhamma. Because there is no other gift that excels that. The gift of Dhamma is the only gift that is really worthwhile giving. Every other gift is one that is just a means to an end. What about money? Isn't money a means to an end? How far will money take you? What's the answer? Up to the grave, absolutely. It can't take you any further than that. So isn't money a means to an end? What about property? Wealth? Houses? How far can that take you? Still the same answer, isn't it? What about youth? Imagine you can come up with some kind of formula which extends someone's youth. That helps someone maintain their good health. Whatever the case might be. Ultimately, it's all a means to an end because all that ends the day you get into that coffin. Or the day you get put into that coffin. Can't think of the last time someone actually got into a coffin themselves. So it's all a means to an end, except for this one thing, the gift of Dhamma. The reason the gift of Dhamma excels all gifts is because it's a timeless gift. What's a timeless gift? Not a Rolex. The Dhamma is a timeless gift. Because this is a gift that was true back then, it's a gift that's true now, and it's a gift that is true forever. The only gift that is going to bring you your salvation. In Buddhist philosophy, there is no person to come and save you. There's no savior. The Dhamma is your savior. I'd like to share a story with you. There was a monk, or there is a monk who lives with us, who was quite poorly over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And he was admitted in hospital for a duration of time. And all our monks visited him from time to time just to make sure he was getting better and to wish him well. You'll see why I'm relating this story to you in a moment. So, he had a really tough time recovering. He was in the wards where they kept a very close eye because it was a serious case of not sure when might be his last breath. So it was that serious. But he's back with us now. He's recovered and he's recovering. But when he got back, he shared with me his time at the hospital, his experience there. He told me about how he witnessed, while he was in bed, a lot of people in neighboring beds passing away. A lot of them crying, weeping and trying to hold on to that last breath, but failing. And how sometimes their relations would come and surround them and cry in their face, "Oh, please don't go away. Who's going to feed me after you die?" Oh. If that's the last thing you've got to say, I mean, that's quite sad, isn't it? Who's going to feed me when you die? Who's going to take care of me when you die? So these were some of the things that he heard. But that's not the most interesting thing that he shared with me. He said, "Swami Wahanse, it was great of you all to come and visit me at the hospital. And when you all came and stood around my bed and you wished me a speedy recovery, that was all good and well. But deep inside of me, I knew that there is nothing that any of you can do to save me right now. If it's my last moment, there is nothing that any of you can do. Attadipa viharata. Anisarana anisarana. No one else can come to your refuge at that point in time. It's only the Dhamma." And he told me, just like I have heard other people have said, and I've heard in sermons delivered by monks over many sermons I've listened to, there were times when he knew he had come very close. How so? He said he could see his entire life flash in front of him. Memories from childhood. Memories that he never thought he had flash in front of him. Just like watching a movie. Incidents from his childhood just flashing in front of him. One after the other. And times when in his life where he had succumbed to desire, raga, had succumbed to aversion, dvesha, had succumbed to delusion, moha, and acted through raga, dvesha and moha. As well as times where he had done meritorious deeds. He said experiences of when he was at the monastery. These events flashing in front of him like a train. One car after the other, just going like that. It's like a movie, playing in front of his eyes. In so vivid detail. So when I heard this, it reminded me of having listened to sermons in the past where this is an experience that we all have to come across when it's our last moments alive. It's like a casino wheel. It'll spin until it comes and stops where you've got the pointer. All these events flashing in front of your eyes, all these events that you've gone through in life, experiences you've had, and it's going to stop at one point. The only problem is you can't decide which point it stops. Whether it's a good deed or a bad deed. You don't know, you can't tell. You just have to wait and watch and see what happens. And he said this was the experience that he had, and he knew it might be time for me to say farewell. But he said, at that point in time, he felt like the Buddha was there in front of him. And whatever event, whatever incident came flashing in front of his eyes, all that he could come to a conclusion was, reject, reject, reject. So his mind was not clinging on to anything. Whether it was a deed that he had done through desire, it comes back into memory, comes alive. But at that point in time, it's as if the Buddha was standing in front of him and going, reject it. There's nothing to hold on to this. Nothing of value to hold on to. It's anicca dukkha anatta. This is not going to bring any pleasure. It's pointless. Let go. Second memory comes back. Again, same. Either good or bad. Regardless, whatever came to his mind, the only thing that happened, this is happening involuntarily. He said he even once tried to deliberately hold on to something, just to test what was really going on, because this is not an experience he had in this life before. So he tried deliberately to hold on to something. He said, I was reminded of the monastery and all these young monks that I've been helping and teaching and giving instruction to. And that came to mind, and I thought, right, I'm going to hold on to this because, I've done good service to the monastery and I live with some good monks, so I must try and hold on to this. Even when he tried to do that, he still couldn't. Because the only answer that keeps coming back is reject. There's nothing worthwhile holding on to. And he realized this was his understanding of the Dhamma that had come to save him at that point in time. Dhammang have rakkati dhammachari. Dhammo have rakkati dhammachari. As he was relating this story to me, I could see a tear in his eye. And he said how he was so pleased with himself that he had taken the path in Dhamma. And at that point in time where no matter whatever he was trying to hold on to, nothing was being clung on to. Everything was just reject. No, nothing. It's not worthwhile. Just let go, let go, let go. And he wasn't even doing deliberately. It was all happening involuntarily. Because the Dhamma had come to his rescue. This is the only rescue you have. This is the only refuge you have. I want you to understand that. This is why I related that story with you. This is why he shared that story with me, and he said, Swami Nohansa, if anyone asks you, what might a near-death experience be like? Well, this is one. This is my personal experience. If you have sought refuge in the Dhamma, if you have an understanding, a comprehension of the Dhamma, then the Dhamma will come to seek to your refuge at that point in time where no one else can help you at that point. No one else. You can't bring a Swami Nohansa and expect him to help you at that point in time, because who knows? You might be reminded of a time when you're in your youth, or perhaps in your time when you were foolish, where you might have offended a Swami Nohansa. So Swami Nohansa comes and he starts chanting Pirit. What you might be reminded of is a time when you were a young boy or a young girl. Mother said, Puta, come and listen to Pirit. I don't want Pirit. What nonsense is that? Stop that and put some music, will you please? You might be reminded of that. Now, are you not better off not having had that Swami Nohansa come and chant Pirit in front of you? This is the thing. You can't pick and choose at that point in time. You just have to let go and see what happens. It's just Russian roulette at that point. You can't pick and choose. At that point, you are just a victim of karma. So a question to you again. Have you been preparing yourself for that day? Or have you got lots of time for that? This Swaminatha, he was only he's only 29 years of age. And remember, he's a Swaminatha. He's a monk who dedicates his life to the Dhamma. Perhaps you live more virtuous lives, maybe. So you have nothing to worry about. He is a monk who battles with Raga, Dvesha, Moha every waking hour of his day. Perhaps you have more vigor. Perhaps you are more courageous. Perhaps you are more tactful. So perhaps you have nothing to worry about. Maybe. If so, that's great. But if not, I ask you again, what have you been doing to prepare yourselves for that day? This day that doesn't come with warning. When it comes, it comes. You know, one bacteria can knock you dead. Can it not? One virus can knock you dead. A virus that you can't even see with your plain eyes. It can knock you dead. One blood cell can knock you dead. What are you playing with? Life has become a game to a lot of people. You don't realize how we're all just hanging on to a fine thread. You know, there are many hundreds of thousands of reasons, causes, which keep you alive at this point in time. You're alive this minute. You were alive the last minute. The causes that are keeping you alive this minute are not the causes that kept you alive the last minute. They're different causes. Because cause and effect works right now. Not causes yesterday keep you alive today. Causes this moment keep you alive this moment. So cause and effect is running 24/7 every second. At this point in time, you're only alive because there are causes that keep you alive. There are reasons that keep you alive at this point in time. And there are hundreds of thousands of them. None of these two causes talk to each other and go, hey, I'm going to help this guy be alive. Would you care to join me? None of your heart muscles talk to each other, or heart cells talk to each other and go, I'm going to try and keep this guy alive. Would you care to join me? They're all independent. If one fails, that doesn't mean the other is not going to fail. It doesn't mean the other is going to fail either. Because they're all independent. They'll all fail independently and they'll all work independently. So if you have 100,000 causes that keep you alive at this given time, this given moment, remember, none of them are working in unison. They're all working independently. Imagine if you were the chief of an army and you had to get them all to stand in line, facing the same direction, ready for a march past. So you go attention, and everyone has to stand in attention. All look in the same direction. Whatever they were doing prior to that, they will all have to stop all that activity now and stand straight, looking in the same direction in attention. So this is your task. Now if you have 100 people, they're all doing 100 different things. No two people talking to each other. They're all just doing about their own business. How much time is it going to take you to bring all of them and get them to stand in attention, all look in the same direction? 100 people? They're not working together. They're just randomly walking here, there, looking up, down, left, right, just doing their own thing. But you want them all to stand in attention, looking the same direction, and doing nothing else at your command. When you say attention, they have to do nothing else but just stand in attention, waiting for your next order. And there are 100 people. Can you imagine how laborious that task is? Now what if there are 100,000 people? They're all doing their own thing, running here, there, everywhere. just going about their business. And your task is at the count of 3, bring them all to attention. All look in the same direction. All standing single file. Can you imagine how difficult a task that is? Now similarly, to keep you alive, there are more than 100,000 causes that have to line up in exactly the right arrangement, exactly the right configuration to keep you alive. They're not going to line up now because they lined up one moment ago. They're all working independently and they have no awareness of time. Just because they did it the previous moment doesn't mean they're going to do it now. Just because they do it now doesn't mean they're going to do it the next moment. But all 100,000 of them have to line up to keep you alive. What are the chances? Which one of these is a surprise? Life or death? Which one's the surprise? Which one's a surprise? Being alive is a surprise. When there are so many causes that have to come together to keep you alive. Leaning Tower of where? Pisa. Why do people go and take photos? Because it's leaning. Because what do you expect it to be? Really? When you go and take photos in front of a straight building, you expect that building to fall. This is why it's a wonder. So people go and take pictures in front of the Leaning Tower of Pisa because you don't expect it to be like this. You expect it to be like that, flat. So because it's like this, it is now a wonder. So you take pictures of it. Because logic says it's not practical, it's not possible that you're leaning like that and you haven't fallen to the ground yet. This is why people go and take pictures in front of the Leaning Tower, isn't it? Otherwise, you could go and take pictures in front of any tower. The Leaning Tower is special because it's leaning when it's expected to be flat. Now think about yourselves for a moment. There are so many causes that have to line up in exactly the right arrangement, in exactly the right configuration to keep you alive at this moment in time. Many hundreds of thousands of causes that have to line up, that have to be in your favor. Which one is the surprise? The fact that they are or the fact that they aren't? They are. It's the surprise that they are in your favor at this given moment in time because there are so many of them. Herding cattle is easier than keeping you alive. So really, people should not be bothering going in front of the Leaning Tower to take pictures. They should come and take pictures with you. Maybe that's why they do that. Hey, would you care posing for a picture with me, a selfie, maybe? Maybe that's why they come and take pictures with you so much. Because they're just so surprised that you're still alive. Why do you get surprised when someone rings you up and says, hey, this guy, yeah, he died last night? Why does that surprise you? That's not what should surprise you. What should surprise you is that the guy who called you is still alive. So when someone calls you and says, hey, you know what, I have to share this sad news with you. So-and-so died last night. What should you be saying? And you're still alive? Because actually, if you put it on probability, the chances of you being alive is unimaginable. It's a miracle that you're alive right now. It truly is. But the inevitable day is coming. And that day we don't know when. So, for the third time and final time, I'll ask you the same question. What did you do last week to prepare yourself for the inevitable day? How much of your last week did you dedicate towards preparing yourself for that? Remember what Guru Swami Maharaj says in his sermons? We all get the same paper. We all get the same test paper. This exam that we have to write is the same paper for all of us. Whether you're a lay person or a monk or a man or woman, whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. Whether you come from a good family or not, it doesn't matter. We all get the same paper. And in this paper, it does not ask you how much money you have in your bank account. What a pity, right? If only they asked that. Oh, you'd pass with flying colors, wouldn't you? If only they asked you how many countries do you have citizenship in, you'd pass with flying colors, wouldn't you? If only they asked you how much property do you have to your name, how much of the country belongs to you, oh, we'd all pass with flying colors. But what a pity, that's not the question they ask you. The only question they ask you is, how much raga, how much dvesha, how much moha do you have left? Then tell me, if you are leaving with this world with the same amount of raga, dvesha, moha with which you came into this world, what has been the purpose of your existence? What has been the purpose of your human existence? If you're a dog, you have an excuse. If you're a pig, you have an excuse because you can't do anything about it. If you're an animal, you have an excuse. I won't fault you. But you're humans. You're living, breathing things with intelligence. You can do things to change the direction of your life overnight if you so choose to do it. You can hear what it is I'm saying. You can understand, you can comprehend. You can choose right from wrong. You can decide what happens in your lives. And yet, if at the end of that life, you are going to tell me, I'm going to go away the same amount of raga, dvesha, moha I came into this world with, what has been the purpose of your human existence? Are you any better than a dog? Are you any better than an animal? Am I saying you're dogs? No, that's not what I'm saying. This is what you will feel when that day comes. When you're on your deathbed and the last moments are ticking by, when that reel starts to play in front of your eyes, it doesn't come with warning. You'll have your eyes shut and all of a sudden you'll see this film flashing in front of you, like a train that's just coming from nowhere. One car after the other, events from your childhood, from your life, flashing in front of you. And you can't choose where this train's going to stop. Which car's going to come and stop in front of where you're standing right now? You can't choose. At that point, you're helpless. No one can come to your refuge at that point in time. Only the Dhamma. You know how many things you've done in your life today you regret. Times when you acted with raga. Times you acted with dvesha. Times you acted with moha. Times where you engaged in unmeritorious deeds, unwholesome deeds. Whether it was killing, stealing, engaging in sensual misconduct, lying, backstabbing. You know. Times when you went really angry, really mad, and the things you said to other people to hurt their feelings. Times when you might have destroyed people's lives with no sympathy at all. You know. Even as I say this, events will come into your mind. You'll be reminded of such times. What if one of those comes and stops in front of you? Who's going to save you then? Then you are helpless. Completely and entirely helpless. If you don't have the Dhamma at that point in time to enable you to contemplate on that event and look at that as being anicca, dukkha, anatta, without that understanding, you're a goner. You're a loser. The Dhamma is the best insurance plan that anyone can buy. And how much is it? Free. Well, that's how the best things in the world are, right? Free. The best insurance plan that you can buy is free. But alas, this is why most people don't bother about it. Because it's free. If the Dhamma was sold to you at a high price, I think people would be more interested. Wouldn't you think so? If we charged you for one of these sermons, 10,000 rupees a sermon, 20,000 rupees a sermon, 25 or 30,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, I mean, heavens, it's in English. 80,000 rupees a sermon. I think there'd be a lot more demand. Don't you think so? If you had to book your seats and buy a ticket to be here, I think there'd be a lot more demand. But alas, it's free. When something's free, people don't value it. That's why people don't value their parents. Why? Free. Who has to pay for a mother? No, it comes free. Who has to pay for a good father? No, it's free. That's why they don't value a good father. That's why a lot of people, they value their tuition masters more than they value their school teachers. Why? One you have to pay a lot for, the other is free. But some of the best teachers in the country are public school teachers. I know, because I went to public schools. Free. Some of the best doctors out there, they don't charge a penny. They do it out of the empathy that they have for all living beings. But people don't value them. Because it's free. Are you one of them? Have you lost value in the things that you have because it's free? Never be like that. The best things in the world are actually free. Don't undermine something just because it's free. Most of all, the Dhamma. This is the one thing that you and I have not had the opportunity to receive in this infinitely long journey in samsara. Because if you and I would have come across this Dhamma, I guarantee we wouldn't have met in this birth. You wouldn't be here today. If you and I had come across this Dhamma prior to this life, you and I wouldn't have met. So don't undermine something just because it's free. Embrace it. That's why a husband doesn't care when a wife treats him well. Because it's free. He doesn't have to pay for it, so it's free. But when he has a mistress, now he has to pay for it. Now there's value. Now you can measure words in rupees, in dollars, in pounds. You can measure them. One word, how much for a word? How much for an hour? You can measure it now. But when you have a good wife, it's free, so no value. When you have a good husband who cares for you, who looks after you, It's free, so don't care. Don't think twice about what you're going to say next and how it might affect them. Why? Free. Until it's free no more. And then you regret. And then you repent. Now it's time to be remorseful. Don't be that guy. Don't be that person. Appreciate what you have. Appreciate what you have, not because that's so good and you want to be back in samsara to go through that again and again and again. But appreciate what you have, because these are all things that a lot of people in this world don't have. A lot of time people actually complain about what they don't have, don't they? Isn't that what people like to do a lot? Complain about what they don't have? Not thinking about what they do have? Doesn't everyone you come across complain about the economy? About the weather? About politics? Yes. Everyone's complaining. Because they don't realize what they have. They don't realize that there are a lot of other countries where they couldn't get out and walk on the street and be guaranteed that they'd come back home alive. They don't realize that. They've forgotten all that. People complain about the police, about the armed forces. Oh, they shouldn't be like this, they should be like that. They're so corrupt. People don't realize that the reason that you can go to bed at night and not worry about what's going to happen is because there's the armed forces out there who keep guard, who guard our nation with their life. People don't realize that. So people complain. People just moan. People complain about the economy. This is always pointing the finger outwards. That's what it is, time and time again. Pointing the finger outwards. The problem's not with me, the problem's out there, so fix yourself. A lot of people complain about their schools. A lot of young children complain about their schools. My school is not a good school. My teachers, they're useless. They're not even in class half the time. Chances are your teacher's not in class half the time because you are not in class half the time. Who's the teacher going to come and teach? Desks and chairs? Or the blackboard? Sometimes you're there in person, but you're not there in mind. So what's the teacher going to come and do in class? You know the old saying? The day you become a good student, a teacher appears. You don't have to do anything. The teacher appears. The day you learn to become a good student, the teacher will just appear. Out of nowhere, a teacher will appear. So stop complaining. Stop pointing the finger outwards. Point your finger inwards. Look at what you can do to be a better person. Look at what you can do for your country, for yourself, for your neighbor, for your husband, for your wife, for your children, for your mother, for your father. See what you can do. Expect little. Give a lot. Because ultimately, what you get is what you give. So if you get little, what's the reason? You're giving very little. Who said so? The Buddha said so. So don't be someone who gives very little and expects the world. Don't be like that. Don't ask what your country can do for you, right? What should you ask? What can I do for my country? We need to talk about these things from time to time as well. Not just anicca dukkha anatta. Because this is what's going to give you a good background, a good foundation. If you don't realize the value of things you have, and again I say, this is not value in terms of, hey, lovely, I just want to keep coming back in samsara. This is the best husband I've ever had. I want to keep coming back into samsara for you, my darling. That's not what we're talking about. Because that is the most foolish decision that anyone can ever make. Remember what we talked about last week? No one loves you. They just love themselves. But if you keep complaining, then what's going to happen is, you're going to lose the very things that are currently helping you to get to where you want to go. And then you're going to be left with nothing. You can't complain the economy because that's all you've got. How can you complain about the sun and the rain and the wind? Isn't that all you've got? Take away the sun, take away the rain, take away the wind, take away the ground beneath your feet. Now what have you got? Nothing. So why are you complaining about? You're complaining about the very things that you've got. This is all you've got. You're complaining about your mother, you're complaining about your father. Well, take them away. Now what are you left with? Nobody. So don't be a complainer. Be someone who's grateful for what you have. Expect little and give as much as you possibly can. Okay. Let's come back to the Dhamma, Anicca Dukkha Anatta. That's what you're here to hear, right? That's what you want to hear. That's what you want to listen to. You know, we've been talking about pleasure and how pleasure is what? Which of these two is pleasure? Something you can find in an object, or is it, what is it? What did we define pleasure as? Yes. Is it a characteristic of an object, or is it the outcome of a process? It's an outcome of a process. So where there is no process, you're not going to see pleasure. There has to be a process. It's not an attribute or a characteristic of an object. Show me where pleasure is in this winnowing fan. Where is it? Where's pleasure on this winnowing fan? Why can you not show pleasure? Why can you not point out pleasure in this winnowing fan? Well, you're going to have to ask, where's the process? Exactly. Where is the process? There is no process that's happening here, so you can't say there is pleasure. So we are talking about a process that is a mental process, a process that runs in the mind. And what is the process? Starts with what? Attachment. As soon as you attach, now what's going on? Vexation. This pelima, right? That feeling. And then, relief from vexation. The result of that process, the outcome of that process is the sensation of pleasure and nothing else. So was pleasure there before the event? Is pleasure there after the event? Is that because of the way I'm asking the question? Okay, let me put it this way. So pleasure is there before the event, isn't it? No, it's only there after the event, right? So where is pleasure then? Where does pleasure manifest? It's during the process. Simple example, headache. Before the headache, before you even begin to feel a headache, do you sense pleasure? No. Well, you should be sensing pleasure right now if you don't have a headache. Now you have a headache. Do you sense pleasure? No. You take a paracetamol and the headache is cured. So let's say it's cured at 12 o'clock. Now it's 1 o'clock. Do you sense pleasure? No. Because before the headache, it was before the event. At 1 o'clock, because the headache was cured at 12, now it's 1 o'clock, it's after the event. Or even 1 minute past 12, that's still after the event. So at neither of these 2 points are you going to sense pleasure. Pleasure is nothing other than the relief from vexation. So it's during the event that you feel this. During the event. Does that make sense? It's during the event. Let's say you've got, another good example would be, you've got a rash, let's say on your palm, and it's feeling quite itchy. You haven't started itching it yet. Pleasure? No, that's painful. You itch it, or you scratch it rather, and then after you've stopped scratching it, how do you feel now? Is that pleasure? No. But while you're scratching it, now that's pleasurable, isn't it? That's pleasurable. So it's during the process that you experience this sensation of pleasure, because it is the outcome of a process, and if once the process stops, now the outcome stops as well. This is the point you need to understand here. Because it's the outcome of a process, that experience can only be sensed while that process is still running. Because as soon as the process stops running, now you can't get an outcome from a process because there's no process running. Do you understand that? You can only experience it while the process is running. But where people fall, where people get this all wrong because of ignorance is, at that point in time where you experience pleasure, something comes from the outside world. This happens as if by coincidence. Using an example, someone says, pizza for dinner tonight. I always get heads turned when I say that. Pizza tonight for dinner, someone says. Now in your mind, you have started vexing for it. Have you not? That vexation did not start before that word was uttered. Would you like pizza for dinner? Before that was said, no, you were thinking about something else. Whether it was the cricket match, or whether you were doing your homework, or just doing about whatever chores you were attending to, that pizza did not come into your mind. But the moment someone said, would you like pizza for dinner? Now that vexation has surfaced. It's not that it wasn't there. It was all submerged. Something else was taking predominance. But now, whatever else has been submerged, and this has now taken predominance. So this has now surfaced. Pizza. Now, someone brings pizza, and it's time for dinner. As you're eating this, as you're sensing the taste of pizza, or the smell of it, or the look of it, this is all you can get from pizza, right? Can you get anything else from pizza? It's got to either be the look, or sight of it, smell, taste, and touch. Does pizza have sound? No, there's no sound to pizza. But these 4 things you get from a pizza while you're eating it. And while you're eating it, now a process is being run. What is the process that's running right now? Relief from vexation. This is the process that's running right now. Relief from vexation is running at this point in time, and therefore you're sensing pleasure. But this is the curse. It's a real pity that this is happening at that very point in time where you're sensing pleasure. And that is, you're tasting pizza at the same time. Your tongue is picking up the taste of pizza, and you're being relieved of vexation at the same time. Because these 2 events are happening at the same time, ignorance tells you it's the taste of pizza that relieved me from vexation. But as we discussed last week, pleasure cannot come from the outside world. Because the moment someone says, would you like to have this? Now you start looking for it. You're seeking for it. You're searching it. When can I have it? Can I go online and order it now? Where's your card? Can I order it now? Now you're searching it. Now you're looking for it. Now you just can't wait for it. It's like this search engine inside of you has just kicked off. It's going looking for it. Imagine this, to give you an analogy. Have you heard of metal detectors? There are machines that can detect metal, right? So imagine you've dropped something on the ground and it's something gold. Okay? Because it's in the sand, you can't see it. It's blended in with the color of the sand. Now to find this, you need a metal detector. So what you do is you go grab yourself a metal detector and you switch on this machine. Once you switch on this machine, imagine there's some kind of motor that's running inside. Whatever the mechanics of this machine is, it's now running. Because it's running, it's consuming energy. And let's say this is heating up slowly but gradually. It's heating up. So now you walk around with this metal detector until it gives you a beep. Tick, tick, tick. So metal has just been located. As soon as you find your metal that you have lost, what can you do to this machine? Switch it off. When you switch off this machine, now the machine starts to cool down. Right? Do you have to keep this machine on after you found your metal? No. The moment you find your metal, what you're looking for, you can now switch off the engine. You can switch off this machine. So what this machine that heated up previously can now cool down. That is the sensation of pleasure. It's not the metal that you found that brought you pleasure. You had been running this machine for a long period of time looking for whatever you had lost. And that was tiring on the machine. Now this machine, according to this analogy, you've got to put your mind into this machine. This machine that I talk of in this example is really your mind, because your mind is what is looking for Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Constantly going looking for it. Because you're attached to it. Whatever you're attached to, you're constantly seeking, you're constantly looking for. But the moment you find what you're looking for, do you have to keep looking after that? Do you have to keep searching? No. When do you stop typing into Google? After you've found what you're looking for. Do you still keep typing in after you found what you're looking for? No. Say you want to find out the Independence Day of Sri Lanka. You type in Independence Day of Sri Lanka. And the result comes up. Do you still continue to type Independence Day of Sri Lanka? No, because you found what you were looking for. Therefore, that activity of seeking, activity of searching can come to a stop. When that activity comes to a stop, remember, this is an activity that was quite tiring. It was stressful. No one likes looking for something that they've lost. If you really enjoy looking for something you have lost, how much you spend your weekends? Losing things, absolutely. Just go to the park with your child and go, Puta, I'm going to close my eyes now. Go run and hide somewhere. And what Ami is going to do is come and keep looking for you. Let's play hide and seek. That's how you'd spend your weekends. But you don't enjoy looking for something you've lost. This is why you say when you go out, Buddha, don't let go of my hand, hold tight. Because you don't enjoy that feeling of having lost whatever you're attached to. Remember, I think last week or the week before, someone asked a question about eating cake. Why is it after you've eaten cake for a period of time, that process is no longer enjoyable? Why is cake no longer enjoyable after you've had it, had a few mouthfuls? So if you remember, the explanation that I offered you was when the mind is in vexation, and when cake is being presented to the mind, remember it has to come through the brain, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I drew it out in a diagram and showed you right through the process. When you're taking in cake through your mouth, so your tongue is tasting cake and your brain is sending Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, packets of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana to your mind, now your mind is receiving whatever it was vexing for. Right? Because it's coming constantly, now you lose value in it. Because it's just there. Every time you ask for it, it's there. Whenever you ask for it, it's there. Then the value that you give it starts to diminish. It's just like the value that you give to your family. a guy likes a girl. Okay? Think about this. Guy likes a girl. If he enjoys that feeling of attraction to the girl, what's the last thing he should do? Say again? What's the last thing he should do? If he likes the attraction that he's feeling from this girl, right? So the girl's pretty, he thinks, she's a lovely girl, I really like you. What is the last thing that this guy should do? Marry her. Why do I say that? Value goes down. Yes. Because what happens after you get married? You take the girl home, and now whenever you're vexing, for that Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, all you have to do is open your eyes and she's there right in front of you. But prior to marriage, you only got to see her once a week when you went to your tuition class. Or you saw her at the party once a month when everyone got together. When there was a get-together, people met each other. Or once a year, whenever, right? Is that how often you see her? Then it's not regular. And you don't know when it might happen, when it might not happen. Right, so put this into your life examples, right? This is how the Dhamma comes true for you. You have to put this into your life and see whether this is true or not so true. Before you got married, you really enjoyed their companionship because it was very scarce. It wasn't easy to come by. You had to fight for it. You had to struggle for it. You had to play hide and seek with your parents. Didn't you? You had to wait to go online when your parents went to bed to have a conversation. To give a call, you had to wait until your parents left home. And then again you'd be on the phone just checking if someone's at the door. Parents have come back home. Put the phone down again. Talk to you later. I've got to go. When that was what was going on, that was quite pleasurable. A lot more pleasurable than it is now. And the reason for that is because back then when you were vexing, it was not easy to relieve yourself of that vexation. Because it wasn't easy to relieve yourself of vexation, the value you gave to that Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha and the Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana that came from that Rupa Shabda Gandha Rasa Sparsha was a lot. You gave it a lot of value. But now, all you have to do is open your eyes and she's there in front of you. This is why I say, if a girl or a guy really likes the look of somebody else or finds another person attractive, the last thing they ought to do is get married. That's the last thing they ought to do. Because the moment you do that, now, value starts to diminish. For as long as these two don't get married, they will live happily ever after. When's the happiest day of a man and a woman? Their wedding day. That's the happiest they'll be in their lives. From that day forwards. Well, you know. You must have lived in the same world that I did. So you know. Put this into your, it sounds funny, but there's a deep Dhamma that we need to understand from this. There's a very profound doctrine that we need to understand from this. Why is that the case? Why does it happen like that? Like I said, Buddhism is not a study about the outside world. Honestly, it's a study about yourself. So this is the time when we have to ask ourselves, why is my mind like that? Before I got married, when I got to see my wife or my wife who was to be my wife, my fiancée, when I only got to see her once a week, those moments were so precious to me. I delighted those moments. I waited, I counted the days and hours and minutes waiting for that moment to come. But now, it's not so much. Why is that? So, study about yourself. This is self-study. Why is that? Because what's happening now is, whatever Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana you're vexing for, you're being relieved of that constantly. Because it's there right in front of you. No scarcity. Yes, it's supply and demand, isn't it? So to get married to them is a false economy. Because now there's greater demand, so rather more supply, less demand. So one day when your child comes and says, Ammi, I've seen this girl, I really like her. What should the mother say? Puta, whatever you do, don't get married. Because until then, you will live happily ever after. This is the truth. Now you know why. Because otherwise, people have these problems in their lives. My goodness, number of times that couples come into the monastery and they talk about how living with their spouses become, hell on earth. But that's not how they used to be. That's not how they used to be. But why is it now? They come and ask me. I'm not an expert on marriage. But I know a thing or two about how the mind works. Because of the Buddha's teaching. So when you apply the principles of the Dhamma into that situation, ticks all the boxes. Yep, time and time again. An example that came to mind, just to help better understand that pleasure is relief from vexation. On one of my recent meditation practices, I'll share with you. Imagine there's a drum. Okay, a drum. So a drum is a percussion instrument, right? Yes. So you have a drum. A guy sees a drum, but he's never seen one ever in his life before. So he sees this object. He doesn't know it's a drum. He sees this object and he wonders, what is this object? Now, of course, he's curious, like the rest of us. So what he does is he walks up to this instrument, which we know is a drum, but this guy doesn't, because he's never seen one ever in his life before. Excuse me. So he walks up to this instrument, or this object, and what he does is he bangs it with his hand. He just goes bang. Now I say bang because that's the noise that comes when you hit the drum. But what he does is he just hits the surface, or the, what do you call it on a drum? The skin? Yeah, the skin of the drum. The diaphragm. That's the posh word. So you hit the diaphragm or the skin or whatever you want to call it, the drum, basically, where you're supposed to hit it. And then that produces a sound. Right? As any drum would. So when a sound is produced, this guy hears that sound and he thinks, that's a lovely sound that's just come from that. That's just come. That's all he knows. Beg pardon? Sorry? He hits it again, yes. So he hits it again. And again he hears that sound. And again he thinks, that's a lovely sound. So he hits it a third time. It's a lovely sound. This guy doesn't realize that what he's hitting is a drum. And it's the nature of a drum, being a percussion instrument, which has air trapped within it, to vibrate, and therefore once it's hit, to generate a sound. He doesn't realize that this is a drum and that is how a drum works. What he thinks is, I hit the drum, I heard a noise, ooh. Wow, what you're capable of. What's he pleased with now? His palm, his hand. He thinks, I never knew you could do that. So he hits it again. And again he hears that sound. Again he thinks, this is marvelous. I never knew that you could do such amazing things. He doesn't realize that it's a drum that he has just hit. And no matter what you hit the drum with, you're going to get a sound and it's going to sound pretty much the same. He thinks that it's the hand that made the noise. So what he's going to do next? He's going to wonder, perhaps there are other things that can also bring me that sound. Then he goes walking and he finds a stick. He brings the stick and starts hitting the drum with the stick again. This time around again he hears that noise. Oh. Just like my hand, this stick is also quite a marvelous thing. It's quite magical. How this stick can bring such lovely sounds. Then he goes looking again for other things that can make this sound. He goes all over the world looking for things that can generate this sound, but not realizing that it's the drum that's doing all the hard work. He thinks it's whatever that object is that hit the drum that is generating this sound that he finds quite pleasurable. The way our mind works, and through ignorance, the decision that we come to is pretty much the same. In this example, the mind is the drum. Okay? The air that's trapped within it is this mind that's in a state of vexation. When this drum is hit, now the air particles within the drum start to vibrate. That's like the mind was in a state of vexation, now being relieved from vexation. That's the process, and the outcome is what? Pleasure. Like the sound that comes because of the vibration of the particles that are trapped inside the drum. But this was triggered by no surprise, because that guy came and tapped the drum. That was the trigger. That was only the trigger though. It was not what was responsible for the sound that came from the drum. But through ignorance, this guy thinks that it was the hand that's done this marvelous job. Likewise, people think that it's the sound or the sight or the smell or the taste that came from the outside world that brought me pleasure, because they don't see what's happening in between. People think that it's the sight that brought me pleasure. Why? Because imagine the hand in that example is the sight that you've just seen. You've just seen a sight. That's now hit the drum. Or that's come into the mind as a mental object. Mind is in a state of vexation. Released from vexation. Now you get pleasure that comes out of that process. Like the sound that has just been generated from the drum. This guy thinks that it was the hand that brought this sound, and we think it's the sight that brought me pleasure. Did you have a question, sir? Okay. He's never seen a drum before. Why is he attached to this? This is where views that we get from the outside world come in. So one fine day, someone said, hey, there's something interesting. I think you should go and explore that a little bit. So they pointed at a drum. This guy didn't know what it was. Someone just pointed at this instrument and said, there's an interesting object in this that we have in this world. You should go and explore it a little bit. Remember, as we talked about last week, you and I, we don't need to be taught about pleasure. Because pleasure is not a new experience for any of us. Throughout samsara, we have experienced pleasure time and time again. This is why we've come through in samsara. For pleasure. For the purpose of pleasure, we've come through. So you don't need to teach somebody about pleasure. We can all experience that. The only thing that someone needs to be told of is there's yet another object that can bring you pleasure. So someone points at the drum and says, that object over there, that can bring you pleasure. So now this guy walks up to it. And now he starts interacting with that object. Just like you interact with all sorts of objects that you come across in the world. The first day you saw a flower in your life, you started an interaction with it, did you not? That's why you opened your eyes and you saw the color that came in through your eyes. That wasn't enough. You walked up to it. You touched it. You're continuing your interaction with it. Then you held it to your nose. Now you can smell it. And for some of you who might have been quite adventurous might have put it on your tongue just to see what it tastes like. This is all interactions that you're having with the outside world, but the reason you walked up to it is because someone said, flower. Interesting object. Go and have a look. And it might not necessarily have been flower in particular, but growing up we just learned that everything in the world we need to go and study, we need to go and explore, we need to go and understand. Be curious, people taught us, didn't they? Have you not been taught to be curious? Didn't we learn that at school? Be curious about the world. Learn about the world as much as you possibly can. Go and explore. Make an adventure out of living life. But it's such a shame that the moment you are experiencing relief from vexation, at that moment in time, something comes in through your eye. A sight comes in as well. And what a pity, these two you join up. They are independent, they are not related. But through ignorance we join the dots and we form a bridge between these two. And then come to the conclusion, it's the sight that brought me pleasure. It's the sound that brought me pleasure. The taste, the smell, the touch that brought me pleasure. But it wasn't them that brought pleasure. It was relief from vexation that brought pleasure. This is why, like the drum, it doesn't matter what you use to strike the drum. For as long as that process is run within the membranes of the drum, you're going to get a sound. Yes or no? For as long as the particles within the drum, the air particles within the drum will vibrate, it doesn't matter what triggers it, does it? No, you throw whatever you want at it. Whatever you throw at it, whether it's a rock or a stone or whatever, you throw at it, or a brick. For as long as you're not going to damage the membrane, whatever hits that membrane, whatever hits the skin or the diaphragm, it's going to trigger that process. And the process is going to be the vibration of those particles. And as a result of that, a sound is going to be generated. So it's the process that brought the sound, not the trigger. The trigger only kick-started the process, that's all. It was complementary, yes. The outside stimulus was complementary. Without it, the process wouldn't have run. But that's not what was solely responsible for the sound that came out at the end. Do you understand the example I just talked about there? So this is what we need to reflect on continuously. The reason that we are attached to this world is because of pleasure. Remember, you are attached to the world. You're not attached to pleasure. You're attached to the world, but because of pleasure. So the two questions to ask: beautiful flower. You're attached to the flower. So if you ask what, it's the flower. If you ask why, is it because it's a flower? It's beautiful. It's the why that we need to fix. Lose a reason to love, and you will not be in that relationship anymore. The reason that you're in a relationship is because there are things that you are attached to. Remove them out of the picture, you are no longer going to be in that relationship. Any kind of relationship. It can be a personal relationship, it can be a business relationship, any kind of relationship. So, don't we have relationships with all things in this world? Flower, what do we have with a flower? It's a relationship. Our mind has a relationship with it. Because it's a source of Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Yes, sir? Yes. So through samsara, all we've been doing in samsara is seeking pleasure. But it's not pleasure that we were attached to. You attach yourself to Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana, but the reason for that is because we think it brings us pleasure. If you remember the example I gave last week, you have a company and you want to hire some people to come and do some work for you. Okay? So you put out a job advert, people apply, and 5 people come around for interviews. At the end of the interview, you decide, these guys are just a waste of time. They have no skill, no education, they have no talent, and they're just going to be a loss to my company and never a profit. So you decide, I'm not going to hire them. Okay? But what they do is they go away, and they go and speak to someone influential, and they come back with a recommendation letter. Now this recommendation letter you respect, because you respect the person that has provided this recommendation letter. Based on the letter, what are you going to do? You hire who? The recommendation letter? No, you hire the 5 people that you rejected initially. It's the same people. They've only come back the following day. They haven't gone and done any courses to improve their skill or talent. They haven't gone on an education course to improve their education. Nothing. They've just come back. The only difference is This time round, they brought with them a recommendation letter. Based on the letter, you hire the same people you rejected yesterday. Same people. If yesterday you decided that they were a waste of time, what do you think they're going to be today? A waste of time. If yesterday you went through their CV and decided they have no skill, they have no talent, they have no education, based on fact you made that decision, didn't you? But now, because of the recommendation letter, you're hiring the same people. All of a sudden, have they come up with some skill and talent? No, it's the same people. So you hire them, what are they going to do to your company? Bring profit or loss? Loss. You hired them, that's the what. But you hired them why? Because of the letter. That letter is Ashvada. That is what pleasure is. Who wrote the letter? Ignorance wrote the letter. Mr. Ignorance wrote the letter. It's because of that letter you hired the same people you rejected, you denied hiring the previous day. Because last time round they didn't come with a letter. There was no pleasure there. But this time they've come with pleasure. So with pleasure you open the door, come on in. But they're only going to cause you so much trouble. Never any joy. They're not going to bring you any happiness. Because the same people you rejected yesterday. So who are these 5 people that we are talking about here? Indeed. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. They never bring us pleasure. Because they have no pleasure to offer. The letter says they are very skilled. They're very talented. They're going to make a lot of money for your company. That's what the letter says. But you know their skills, their CV says an entirely different story. If you had known any better, would you have hired them? No. If you had known any better, you wouldn't have hired them. But because of the letter, you took them on board. You went against your better judgment. Based on the letter, you took them in. And now, they're just causing havoc. All they're doing is causing chaos in your company. What is your company? What is this company we speak of? It's the mind. The mind's the company. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana are these 5 people that came looking for a job. Previously you denied them because if through wisdom you had made that call, you wouldn't have hired them. But they came in with the letter. And on the letter they said, skilled, talented, educated, great guys. Oh, well, welcome. Come on in. Because we are ignorant. So remember, the letter was written by ignorance. The mind suffers from ignorance. Because ignorance is not something that comes from the outside where we can look at it and go, that's ignorance, so I'm not going to accept it. It's intrinsic. Ignorance is part of the very fabric with which this mind has been woven. For as long as ignorance prevails, you're always going to make the wrong choice. Because good looks like bad and bad looks like good. Remember the equation we spoke of some time ago? X times minus 1 equals Y. Times minus 1 is ignorance. So whatever number you plug into X, you're going to get the negative of that. So put in a negative number, you get a positive number. Put a positive number, you get a negative number. So good looks like bad, bad looks like good. That is what ignorance is like. So for as long as ignorance prevails in this mind, you can't not attach. It's not something you can do. I am ignorant. I'm not going to attach. You can't do that. Because what is ignorance? Ignorance is nothing other than attaching is good. So when right from the inside you're coming up with attachment is good, why would you not attach then? If attachment is good, why wouldn't you attach? You'd always do the right thing, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? Would you not always do the right thing? You would always do the right thing, yes. But through ignorance, the right thing is the wrong thing. That's the problem. The wrong thing looks like the right thing. That is the problem. So you're always doing the right thing. Ask a murderer, was that right of you to do that? Of course. Under those circumstances, I had no other choice. It's not right that you send me to the gallows. I was right in my choice, says the murderer, says the robber. Justifying. You'll always justify it. But it's an ignorant mind that always justifies the wrong thing. Because ignorance is simply that, sir. Seeing right as being wrong and seeing wrong as being right. So, but you're always only going to go for the right thing. But that right thing is going to be the wrong thing. That's the problem. So this is why until someone becomes a Sotapanna, now right view has been planted in this person's mind. Now their view is no longer distorted. Now their view is right. So now they no longer see right as being wrong. The -1 in the equation has gone to become a +1. That's what right view is. Now you plug in a negative number, you're only going to get a negative number. You plug in a positive number, you're only going to get a positive number. Do you see how fundamental this is? How becoming a Sotapanna is simply the key, and there is no other way out of this. Because now when you have right view, and that's part of your own mind, yes, ignorance still prevails. Remember, ignorance is only removed at the stage of becoming an arahant. But even when ignorance is there in the mind can still make the right choice. Because at the point of making the choice, when the mind makes the wrong choice, the mind knows, I am making the wrong choice. You know you are making the wrong choice, and yet you make that choice. Because you are still attached to pleasure. You know that pleasure is wrong, and that pleasure cannot be anything that is worthwhile. An example I might offer is, let's say someone's got someone's got an STD. Okay? It's a disease. And you're going to contract that disease if you sleep with them on the same bed. Okay? So that's the nature of this disease. If you know the nature of an STD, you're not going to go and do that. The reason that you've been doing it is because you didn't know that this person had this disease. A Sotapanna is like someone who knows that they've got this, but because they are so accustomed, so used to enjoying the pleasure of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, they will nevertheless go ahead and engage in that process. But they know fully well that tomorrow morning, I will also be in the same boat. They know fully well. But still, they'll go and do it. I'll take another example so everybody can understand. Smoking. Back when smoking first was invented or introduced, right, people didn't know that it was harmful. People thought that was the dumb thing. You know, to be somebody in society, you have to smoke. But now it's quite the other way around. People don't like it when someone smokes, generally. So, when smoking was first introduced, was smoking not bad for them back then? Actually, it was worse than it is now. Because now, you know, through advancements and improved filters and things like that, and better chemistry, now at least the damage that it does to your insides has been reduced to some extent. But back then, the damage would have been unimaginable, because the science was not so advanced back then. So people smoked. So when people don't realize that smoking is bad for them, they'll go and smoke. And sometimes you have chain smokers. One day, this guy who's a smoker, he goes to the doctor, gets himself examined, and gets an x-ray of the lungs, a chest x-ray, and on there, the doctor points out, hey, you've got tar on the insides of your lungs. If you continue at this rate, you're not going to last very long. Now this person knows that smoking is bad, is harmful for them, for their health. So this guy now knows this, because it has been proved. Empirical truth. There's evidence now. It has been proved. Now, he or she realizes, this is bad for me, I had better stop smoking as soon as I possibly can. But because of the addiction that they have, it's hard for them to give it up. But every time they take a puff, don't they know that every puff I take is taking me one step closer to my death? They know that fully well. But still, they can't give it up because of the addiction that they've had for a long time. They've been smoking. Like you and I have been smoking throughout samsara. Smoking what? Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is what we've been smoking throughout samsara. We didn't realize that this is not good, this is harmful. So we kept smoking. But one fine day, you got to listen to the Dhamma. So this guy went to the doctor, got himself a chest x-ray, and now he sees, this is harmful, this is damaging my health, I had better stop. But it's going to take him time to break the habit. Until the habit is broken, he's going to continue doing it. But every puff he takes, now he knows this is wrong, does he not? He knows this is wrong, this is damaging to my health. So he makes a firm endeavor, I'm going to stop it, hopefully. This is my last one, I'm not going to do it again, hopefully. He makes a promise to himself. And also, before he discovered that smoking was bad for him, let's say a young child comes to him and he asks, what are you doing? I'm smoking, would you like to try one? He might have said, because he doesn't realize that smoking is bad. He didn't, at least not until he went to the doctor. So he praised it. He said, this is good. This is what you have to do. If you want to be somebody in society, you have to smoke. So he spread the word. Smoke as much as you possibly can. Go and buy cigarettes. You can find them everywhere. He used to promote it. But now he has come across this understanding that no, it's harmful. It's damaging. Chances are, he's not going to promote it anymore. He's not going to ask somebody to do it. In fact, if someone comes up to him and says, what are you doing? Can I have one as well? He's probably going to say, don't start the habit. I'm struggling to give it up myself. It's a bad habit. It's not going to be any good for anybody. I'm trying to break the habit, so you had better not start it. That is what a Sotapanna is like. A smoker who's gone to the hospital, got himself checked up, and now knows he's got tar in his lungs. Now he's trying to break the habit. Every puff he takes, he knows this is wrong, but he still engages in that. Until one day he is completely able to stop taking cigarettes. That's the day he has become an Arahat. Does that example make sense? Yes. So that's, how some people, they go to the doctor, get themselves examined, and they decide, oh my goodness, I'm not going to do this ever again. Overnight, they can break the habit. That takes a lot of willpower, a lot of courage, a lot of guts. Right? Some people are like that. They can decide overnight, no, I'm not going to do it ever again. Stop. But others, it's not so easy. For others, they have to go through a process, a healing process. It will take time. And over that time, they might say, right, next month, I'm going to stick myself to one a day and no more. And the following month, they might say, okay, one every 2 days. The following month, they say one every week. So this is how they learn to wean themselves off smoking. It's going to take them time. And is it not the same on the path in the Dhamma? For some people, all you have to say is anicca dukkha anatta. All raga, dvesha, moha has been eradicated in the flick of a finger. That's all it takes. Instantaneous arahat. But they still went through Sotapanna, Sakurdagami, Anagami and Arahat. There are no instant arahats in that in that sense. No one goes from being a Prutakjana to Arahat. You have to go through the process of Sotapanna, Sakurdagami, Anagami, Arahat. But that happens immediately. In the flash of a second it can happen, because all you need is one chitta. In the time it takes me to flick my fingers, how many chittas? Billions. So in the time it takes me to do this, you can go from being a Prutagjana to Sotapanna, Sakurdagami, Anagami, Arahat. There are people like that. If you read the times in the Buddha's time, young people who came to ordain, as their head was being shaven, Kesha, Loma, Naka, Danta, Tacho. Kesha, Sotapanna. Loma, Sakurdagami. Danta, Anagami. Tacho, Arahat. Provided you are receiving that instruction from someone who is also a Margapalalavi, a nobleman, a noble person. Because when you say the word Kesha, there's a lot of Dhamma inside it. It's not just hair. But I can't talk to you about that. Beg pardon, sir? Yes. So that's the paramita, right? There is that as well. The paramita that you have been fulfilling throughout samsara. So that ripens at that point in time. There are lots of people like that. The Buddha gives one sermon. And there are Sotapanna. Others, like, the first sermon the Buddha delivered. The wheel-turning sermon. Dhammsatpayatam Sutra Desana. Right? Kondanya went from being a Prutagjana to Sotapanna. But none of the others went through any transformation. Because their paramitas had not been fulfilled yet. They had further to go in the path. Because still you need the perfections. Virtue, charity, right? Patience. All of these are virtues, all of these are perfections that one has to fulfill. Throughout samsara, what are you doing now? Are you not fulfilling perfections? So, listen, don't you think that it's a good thing when people come and shout at you? Absolutely. One, it's a test, madam. And two, do you think we would have had a Buddha if not for Devadatta? Would we have had the Buddha if not for Devadatta? Throughout every encounter they had in samsara, what did Devadatta do? Try to do all sorts of harm to the Buddha, to the Bodhisattva, right? He acted with a lot of malevolence. Always causing him harm and giving him trouble, trying to test his patience. But every time, what did the Bodhisattva do? He tolerated that. He wanted to be the better person because he wanted to become a Buddha. So, had those encounters not come into his life, how would he have fulfilled the perfections? There would not have been the opportunity for him to do it. It's like, imagine if you have to work through 100 sums. Oh, okay, flight school. How does one become a pilot? To get their license, you have to go through X number of flying hours. But flying until you have gotten yourself a license can be quite dangerous. It can be quite stressful. Yeah, as you're getting into a jet, now you're flying it, you haven't got a lot of experience, it can be quite stressful. But you have to go through that process to eventually get yourself your license because you need to go through so many flight hours. So, shouldn't this person be grateful when they are expected to go and have some time in a jet? Because now they are getting the opportunity to earn themselves the flight hours so that eventually they can get themselves the license. Likewise, the Bodhisattva, to become the Buddha, he will have had to go through all those atrocities that Devadatta brought to the Buddha. Had he not done that, he would have not become the Buddha. So, apply that into your lives then. If you want to become an Arahant, who here doesn't want to become an Arahant? Okay, thankfully everybody wants to. If you want to become an Arahant, then you have to fulfill the perfections. You have to fulfill patience. How does one fulfill patience? What must happen for someone to practice patience? Yes. You should have Devadattas in your life. So people should come and shout at you. They should come and take away things that belong to you. Like what? Including, but not only, your money, your property, What about your husbands? Yes. What about your children? Of course. What was the Bodhisattva in his last birth? Before he became the Siddhartha? Vesantara. What did he give away? Children and his wife. So he had to have the Devadatta in that life come and ask for his children and wife, didn't he? Had he not come and asked for that, who would he have given them away to? So when someone comes and says, I really like the look of your husband, can I have him? If you really, really, really want to become an arahant, if you are serious about Nibbana, you wouldn't think twice before going, of course. Would you like me to dress him up for you? That's if you are really serious about Nibbana. We do it in some form. This is why when we came into robes, we let go of a lot of things. Husbands and wives and property and money and all sorts of things we let go of. Because we need to practice letting go. Otherwise, how can you let go of these Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana? These are very subtle things. If you can't let go of the big things, how can you let go of the little things? Yes, madam. Absolutely. The state of Sotapana is irreversible. You can't go back to becoming a Pruthakjana, even if you wanted to. I can't think why you'd want to, but you wouldn't. You can't even if you wanted to. It's irreversible because it is a state of understanding. It's a level of understanding. Okay, let me put that into a real life example for you. How much is 2 plus 2? Okay, now I want you all to forget that. Now I want you all to not know that 2 and 2 equals 4. Go on. Can you? No. You can't do that because you just know it. It's part of your system now. Now 2 plus 2 equals 4, you might forget in your next birth. You'll have to learn it again. But this is a level of understanding of the mind, because the mind, the amount of ignorance and attachment is what is fading as you go through your levels of understanding. It's ignorance and attachment. Remember we drew the curve and underline. I drew the line of ignorance and attachment. It's that line that is fading away. It's that you're chipping away. This is the foundation on which your mind is running constantly. So you're chipping away at ignorance and attachment. 25%, 50%, 75%, and eventually 100%. At the point of zero ignorance, there's zero attachment. Can you listen to the Dhamma to rid yourself of attachment? You're saying that because that's how I asked the question. Then what can you listen to the Dhamma for? Well done, Putta. Well done. Did you really know the answer? You did. I'm asking about the other people in the room. You can only get rid of ignorance, because attachment is the result of ignorance. Remember, there is no treating the result in Buddhist doctrine. It's treating the cause. Treat the cause, the result will look after itself. You don't have to worry about the cause. The result. Treat the cause. So the cause of attachment is ignorance. Treat ignorance, and the cause, which is attachment, will look after itself. This is why this Parisnampada starts at avidya pacchaya sankhara. Sankhara pacchaya vijnana namarupa salayatana passa vedana tanha. Right? It comes all the way down. Much further down the line, you get tanha. Before that, ignorance is right at the beginning. So fix ignorance. One might say, I don't want to tackle ignorance. I just want to tackle attachment. What is the cause of attachment? Yes, because if you look all the way back, the start of the line is that ignorance. So you can't not deal with ignorance. You have to deal with ignorance. If you want a tree, if you want to kill a tree, you have to uproot it from the roots. That's what uprooting is. You have to pull it out at the roots. If you cut off some branches, those branches are just going to grow back again. But to kill the tree once and for all, you have to pull it at the roots. Remove it at the roots, that tree is never going to grow back again. So this is why you have to treat it at ignorance. Treat ignorance and the rest will look after itself. So what is ignorance again? Beautiful flower. Where's ignorance? You sure? Yes. Is it? The composition of ignorance or the composition of flower or the composition of beautiful? Which one is ignorance? They are both ignorance. Aren't they both ignorance? You don't know the composition of a flower. Isn't that ignorance? Who can you go to get help for this? Okay. You can go to a scientist who might do some chemical analysis and he'll come back and say this has got so much carbon, so many hydrogen atoms, so many oxygen atoms, so many sulfur, and so on and so forth. So that's one type of ignorance. But removing that ignorance is not going to get us to Nibbana. Remember, what we are attached to is the flower, but why we are attached to is what we need to fix. Because it's beautiful. That's the why. Fix the why, the what will look after itself. This is why I say, the times in your life where you need to be mindful and do something about how you're feeling is not when you're feeling sad, not when you're feeling disappointed, not when you're feeling stressed. Because, this is what doctors are there to treat. Stress, anxiety, frustration. Right? You go to a psychiatrist, they'll help you with all these problems. But what does the Buddha help you fix? Pleasure. When was the last time you went to a psychiatrist and said, I'm seeing this girl, she's so beautiful, help me? You would have said, don't come to me. Go to a Magul Kapua. What do you call them in English? Matchmaker, thank you. Go to a matchmaker. But there's no point going to the Buddha and saying, oh Buddha, I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. He'll treat, but that's not what he's going to treat. These are symptoms. Anger is a symptom. Frustration, anxiety and stress, they're all symptoms. This is not the disease. The disease is pleasure. Attachment because of pleasure. Because you see pleasure, you attach yourself to something that is eventually going to bring you stress. You attach to your child. My child. Where's the ignorance? My. But you are attaching to your child because of my. You didn't attach to next door child because not my. You attach to child because of my. The child is going to bring you stress, sure enough. But that stress you're going to have to go through and suffer because of my, not because of child. Because next door child is also bringing stress, but not to you. To whoever calls him or her my child. Yes, Putta. Yes, it's the adjective there that's the problem. The my, or the beautiful, delightful, pleasurable, yummy, tasty, gorgeous, fabulous. All these, they're all synonymous with pleasure. That's the ignorance we ought to fix. So this is why I say, whenever, in society as you live, go you work or school or wherever, what you need to be watching out for are the times when you sense pleasure, not the times when you sense pain. Remember I told you some time ago, The dependent origination process. The first half talks about the problem. The second half talks about the symptoms of the problem. Avidya Pachya all the way up to Jati. That is the problem you ought to fix. But where do most people spend their time fixing? Jati Pachya, Jara, Marana, Shoka, Parideva, Dukkha, Dhomanasa. This is where people spend most of the time fixing. Why does one go to the doctor? To fix Avidya Pachya Sankara? No. I'm growing old, help me. My face has started to wrinkle, help me. Can you put me through some detox? Help me. I need liposuction, help me. This is what people go to the doctor for. Treating what? Symptoms, not the disease. Because that doctor does not know what the disease is to begin with. This is why you need the greatest doctor that has ever come into this world to show us where the problem is. Wherever there is jati, you can't stop Jara, Marana, Shoka, Parideva coming your way. That just comes. So if you don't like the effect, then treat the cause. Treat the cause and the effect will look after itself. Is that clear to everybody? This is the fundamental bit that you need to understand. If you've understood this, you've got the doctrine. And remember, even attachment is causal. In other words, it's cause and effect. Because if attachment was a fixed entity, then we would not be able to do anything about it. Remember, the second noble truth is the cause of suffering. Dukkha samudaya arya satya. Or take suffering for that matter. Suffering is causal. Suffering is the effect. You got to treat the cause. Then you will treat the result of suffering. The result that is suffering. Dukkha samudaya. Meaning, it is based in causes. And then the third noble truth is Dukkha nirodha arya satya. Nirodha is what? Find out the cause, treat the cause, and then the result will look after itself. Not attain. Samudaya, nirodha. Udavima is arising. In the word itself, there's the meaning that this is a result of causes. This is conditional. That's what udavima is. Ativima, nativima, and udavima, vayavima are entirely different. They are worlds apart. Are you following what I'm saying here? It's an important point. Samudaya and nirodha. The cause for suffering, the Buddha talks about. The cause. Cessation of the cause for suffering, not cessation of suffering. That is what everybody tries to do. Cessation of suffering. If you take a paracetamol, that is cessation of suffering. But cessation of the cause for suffering can only be found in the Buddha's doctrine. You've got to find the cause. What is the root cause for this suffering? Then treat it. Once you treat the cause, then that effect is never going to come back again. Because now you're uprooting it. Does that make sense? So, as you live lay lives and whatever it is you engage in, always be mindful of the times you sense pleasure. These are your traps. These are the things that are going to ensnare you into samsara. It's not suffering. No one here likes suffering. Do you like suffering? No. But don't you like pleasure? Yes. That's what got you into trouble. Liking pleasure. That's the why, because of which you attach to the what? Rupa, Shabda, Gandha, Rasa, Sparsha and Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. This is the what. The why is pleasure. If you don't fix the composition of pleasure, if you don't contemplate the composition of pleasure, what is pleasure? How does pleasure come into this world? How is it that we sense pleasure? This is why often we talk about how does one sense pleasure? It is relief from vexation. Once you realize that, then you realize that pleasure is not something that is worth experiencing. It's not worth having. Would you like to feel pleasure? If that pleasure is brought to you by hitting you with a stick and then patting you there? That kind of pleasure, would you like that? You have to be hit first. Then you have to be patted. Patting without the hitting? That's not pleasurable. That's why we said, no pain, no gain. For there to be gain, there has to be pain beforehand. You like the gain, yes. But you don't realize that there's the pain beforehand. Without the pain, there's not going to be a gain. People in worldly language, the people use it in a completely different sense. But the Buddha said the same thing. No pain, no gain. What he meant by that is, for you to experience ashvada, for you to experience pleasure, there has to be pelim or vexation beforehand. It's relief from vexation that brings you pleasure, and nothing else. So contemplate on that. So if you're mindful, if you're at battle, this is the war that we're all doing. And I'm doing it 24 hours a day. How much time do you have to put to battle? Because this is the battle that we're all going to have to either win or lose. Throughout samsara, we've always lost this battle. If you realize, with every chitta that arises, you're only ending with suffering. Once you begin to realize this, I don't think there's anything else that can take priority in your life than trying to fix that problem. If you really and truly understand that. The reason, and you should forgive me for saying this, the reason that there are other things that take priority in your life right now is because you have not yet fully understood the true nature of suffering. You have not yet fully understood it. Once you have truly understood how much you have embraced suffering, life in the apaya is better than this. Life in the four great hells is better than this. Because there, it's physical pain. Here, no matter what you're doing, doesn't matter how much money you have. Remember we talked about the mother losing her child? When the child is still holding on to her hand, she's going, where's my child? So if you're not a regular listener, you'll be going, what is he talking about? So go back and listen to previous sermons. The mother's holding on to the child's hand, but that mind, the thought that arose, that chitta has passed away. Now the mother can't sense that the child is holding on to her hand. So the mother's going, where's my child? This is happening at 1 billion times a second. It's going through life and death at 1 billion times a second. Life in the hells is not that bad. Life in hell is not that bad. This is at 1 billion times a second. Your mind is going through this. Whether you are in the human world, the Deva world, the Brahma world. Regardless of how much you have, what you have, not relevant. Because you can't fix that problem. You can't stop your mind from passing away. Whatever has arisen, when the causes cease to exist, it will pass away. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. So if you can't stop it, then there's only one thing you can stop, and that is attachment. Attachment is caused by ignorance. And that ignorance is, this thing that you're holding on to is pleasurable. You see? Seriously, what you really have to do is something that's really simple. You don't have to do a lot. It's very simple. Did you not think that attaining Nibbana was a really hard thing to do? Before you started listening to the sermons? Nibbana, oh God, don't talk to me about Nibbana. When are we ever going to be able to do that? Maybe when Maitri Buddha comes into this world, just maybe, if we are lucky, we'll do it. But attaining Nibbana is not so difficult. What you need to understand to attain Nibbana is not so difficult. It's not difficult, but it's very subtle. It's very subtle. It's like what I usually say, threading a needle. It's very, you look somebody trying to thread a needle, and if they're failing, what do you generally do? What are you going to say? Give it here, will you? Can't you even do that? Come on, give it to me. I'll do it to you. I'll do it for you. And then you try it. And then you realize, although it looks so easy, it's very subtle. You have to have a lot of patience. And you have to have a good view, good eyesight as well. You have to see, you have to know what you're doing. You have to be very careful and very patient. Attaining Nibbana is like that. It's like threading a needle. It's not difficult, but it's very subtle. You can go off-road very easily. There are lots of doctrines which look like Nibbana, but it's not Nibbana. Like fake gold. When there's fake gold, you have to be very careful. For as long as there's no fake gold, then any gold you buy is going to be the genuine stuff. But when there's fake gold, now you have to be very careful. There are lots of teachings out there that are like Nibbana, but not Nibbana. Some people talk about extinguishing the Rupa. Rupa Niruddha. Rupa Nirodha. Vedana Nirodha. Sanya Nirodha. Sankara Nirodha. Vijnana Nirodha. Then a lot of people have come and spoken to me. They talk about their experiences. And half the time I just sit down and listen. And after they've said their piece, I go, oh, good. Good luck. If I were given $1 for every time someone came up to me, not to ask me, but just tell me what they know. They just want someone to listen to them. If I were given $1 for every time someone came, I'd be a millionaire by now. Again. They've gone down a wrong path. And when you've gone a long way down the wrong rabbit hole, it's very difficult to pull them back. Because of, what did we talk about last week? Ego. Because of ego. People seldom like to listen. People like to talk. People like to say what they know. The problem is, they've said what they know to everybody that they associate with. None of them understand what it is they're going on about. So they think, surely a Swami must understand. So they come to the temple and now they start talking to us. So I just keep nodding my head. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Really good. Good. If you think that's right, keep doing it. What else am I supposed to say? I used to try to put them on the right track, but they wouldn't listen. Oftentimes they would go upset. Oftentimes they might even go offending the Swaminvans that they were talking to, and doing them more damage than they had before they came in. That Swaminvans doesn't know anything. What a waste of my time. Weren't they better off not coming into the monastery? And people do this. Because there are lots of things that look like Nibbana, but not Nibbana. If the Buddha tried to extinguish Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana at the point of becoming a Buddha, how did he go and speak to people? How did he know that Venerable Ananda was approaching him? Again, it's a sight coming through the eye. The brain is giving Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana to the mind. So if becoming a Buddha or becoming an Arahant is about extinguishing Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, how did the Buddha know that Ananda is coming towards him? He wouldn't, would he? No. There's only one way to attain Nibbana. That's the Buddha's way. Don't try to discover other paths. Because had there been other paths, he would have taught us that. When the Buddha says there's only one cause for suffering, don't try to go looking for another one. Excuse me. There is only one cause for suffering. Not two. Only one. Not half. There's only one. And that is attachment. Is it not so clear to you by now That attachment is the cause of all suffering. Every example we come through, every time we talk about your life experiences, is there ever a time where you have suffered where there is no attachment playing part in that? Whether it's stress or anger or resentment or frustration or whatever, it's always attachment. Why do people get angry? You're attached to something, it doesn't work out the way you want, now you're angry. So how do you treat anger? Can you treat anger? Yes, count to 10, right? Isn't that how they teach you? Count to 10, and that's how you treat anger? Count to 10. You can't treat anger. You can treat attachment. When you're not attached to something, then it doesn't matter which way it turns out. If you like your tea hot, now you're attached to hot cup of tea. Then when your tea goes cold, now you feel angry. The reason that you're feeling angry now is not because your tea is gone cold. It's because you're attached to a hot cup of tea. Treat that. Treat what you're attached to. If you're not attached to a hot cup of tea, now do you care how your tea comes? No. Test yourself in day-to-day. I think the other day someone asked me, give us some practical examples. Let's say at home, okay? You wake up and you want to get yourself a cup of tea. You go to the kitchen, you make yourself a cup of tea, and you make one, say, for your spouse as well. And you take it to them, and you leave it there. You say, hey darling, I've made you a cup of tea, come and have it when you're free. So they go where they do, go about their business, and then they come back, and now it's gone cold. Now they come and start shouting at you, hey, my tea's gone cold. Why did you bring me a cold cup of tea? I don't drink cold cups of tea, you know that. Now they start shouting at you, or they start blaming you for it. What is your immediate reaction? Is it not justification? Your immediate reaction is going to be, well, whose fault is it that it's gone cold? I brought you a hot cup of tea. You left it there and now it's gone cold. Don't come blaming me. This is what you're going to say. You've just turned Devadatta back and given him a kick on his back. Have you or have you not? Devadatta came right into your arms, offering you an opportunity to fulfill your perfections. You said, no, not today, come back tomorrow. You know what that they put on homes? Balagiri dose, ada neme heta. It's like Devadatta, not today, come back tomorrow. So what you're saying is, I'm not so keen on Nibbana today, maybe tomorrow. Don't do that. Don't be the one who says something back. Really try this out, at least next week, in the following week, before you come back next week, try it out. Someone complains, my tea's gone cold. I'm so sorry. Let me go and get you another one. It's going to be so difficult to say that. So incredibly difficult. Try it if you can. Someone says the food's too salty. I'm so sorry. Let me go and get you another plate. Someone says, why haven't you swept the house? And you just did. A few minutes ago, only he came in with his shoes on. And now that's where all the dust and mud is coming from. You know that. He doesn't want to accept that. What is going to be your immediate reaction? How dare you say, I didn't sweep the house. That's what I've been doing all day. You walk in, mister, with your shoes on, and now it's dusty and dirty. You get the broom, you sweep it. That's how you might feel like saying. You just asked Devadatta, turn around, and gave him a kick on his back. In other words, you are saying, Nibbana, not today, not so keen on, maybe tomorrow. Fight the urge. Fight the urge to come back with a response. Don't feel that you always have to have the last word. You'll feel that. I want to have the last word. I have to have the last word. I must say the last word. Not you. I must. Fight it. Be stubborn. Not with the other person. Be stubborn with ego. I think I said to you last week, whenever ego says do something, be stubborn and do the opposite. So when your husband says, why haven't you swept the house? Now your ego is going to say, you sweep. I do it every day of the week. Today is your turn. You do it. No, fight your ego. Be stubborn. You tell him, I'm sorry, darling. Let me go and get the broom. I'll sweep it right now. Or if you're busy, I'm just in the middle of something. I'll do it in a little while. That sounds like a coward, isn't it? A real coward. It's not like you to do something like that, is it? To behave like a coward. Does not tally with your status, does it? A well-educated person like me, it's not right that I should be saying like that, bending over backwards for other people. You live in my house. My parents gave me this house. You came here and now you're living in my house and you have the guts to ask me to sweep the house when I've already swept it. These are some of the feelings that will come from inside. Fight them. If you are serious about Nibbana, fight it. This is Mara. You have nowhere to go looking for Mara. That is Mara. Mara is not in Paranimita Vasavartiya. There's Mara there, right there with you. Right when you're feeling that anger, that resentment, I just did it. Fight it. If you win that battle this time round, you're going to feel so happy you did it. It's going to be difficult, but you're going to feel so happy you did it. Yes. 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 Be the carpet on which people come and wipe their feet. If you're serious about Nibbana. If not, that's okay. If you're serious about Nibbana, be like the carpet on which people wipe their dusty feet. And when they come in with their shoes, they've got all sorts of stuff on their shoes. Sometimes it's dust. Sometimes it's poo. Right? Be that. Nivatya. Be the coward. Whatever you want, do to me. Provided they're not causing you physical harm, because then it becomes difficult. Mentally, let people walk all over you. This is not something you would learn in a personality development class, would it? Let people walk all over you? Are you kidding me? But if you want to be someone with real character, someone who has real guts, someone who has a real strong personality, then you're the one who can stand up to that and not fight back and be okay with that. Ask yourself, are you that kind of person? If not, practice it. It's with practice that makes perfect. Practice makes perfect. The first time is going to be so difficult. How many times have you been faulted when it wasn't your fault? At home? I don't have to give you examples. You know plenty of them. Where you've been faulted at work. You've been blamed, but it wasn't your fault. Something else went wrong. Project was late. You're the project manager, you get blamed for it, but someone else, some supplier, it was their problem. They were late. Well, the problem is at work, you're going to have to keep your job. So you're going to have to justify. But can you justify without feeling anger? That's the important thing. If you're justifying, that's okay, because you're expected to point out right from wrong, particularly at the workplace. But if you're feeling anger inside, now you have failed. You have failed. You might look victorious in the face of the world, but in front of the Lord Buddha, you have failed. In front of who do you want to be victorious? Every man and his dog? Or the Supreme Buddha? Whose face would you like to see a smile on because of you? Every man and his dog or the Supreme Buddha? This is the Supreme Buddha we are talking about. Madam. Yes. It's like, how did you learn to ride a bicycle? None of us got on the bike and started riding it first time we got on it, right? It was the first time we got on a bike. We all fell. But that didn't stop us. We got back on it again and started riding again. And what happened? Sure as hell, fell again. But we got back on it again. Until when? Until you were able to maintain your balance. Not until tomorrow, not until next week, until we were able to maintain our balance. Until we were able to reach our goal. So that's how long you have to keep fighting it. Remember, you're trying to do something today, madam, that you have never tried to do in samsara. In samsara, we have always done the complete opposite. Whenever someone said something, you always had two things to say back in return. It was an eye for an eye, wasn't it? A life for a life. That's what we were used to in samsara. But now, that's not who we want to be. That's who we were. That's not who we want to be. So you're going to feel anger. Yes. And the desire is the same. When you're feeling raga, could be for anything. Whether it's rupa raga, sabda raga, gandha raga, rasa raga, sparsha raga. Particularly young people have to be very careful. Because now the world is, there's so much choice out there. You pick up your phone, go on Facebook, everything's there. You go on the internet, absolutely everything's there. You can ruin your life on the internet if you wanted to. Can't you? You can if you want to. Because it's prevalent now. This is why I say, I think some time ago I encouraged parents and I invited parents, have that open dialogue with your children. Teach them about raga, dvesha, moha. And talk to them and tell them, Puta, if ever you see somebody, a boy or a girl, doesn't matter. You don't know these days. People's minds, how they bend. What sort of attractions they have these days. If you ever see somebody and you feel desire, you feel the want to go and indulge in whatever activity with them, feel free to come and talk that over with me first. With Ati or with Ammi. Let's have a chat first. Let's be open about it. Because if you take the stick, if you start to give them the cane treatment, the moment they come and talk to you about it, they're not going to come back a second time. Then they're going to go looking for a friend to share their experience with. And chances are, their friend is going to be worse than them. Then you will have failed as a parent. So as a parent, keep those dialogues open with your children. Because now, back in the days of my parents and their parents, they didn't have to talk about these things a lot. Because sex and drugs wasn't that much of a problem. But now it is. It's a huge problem. And you know it because you have children. You know it because you are key players in society. Perhaps some of you are involved in not sex and drugs, but in activities to stop them and save our youth from such issues. So you know how serious this problem is now. So if you don't open that dialogue with your children, then what's going to happen to your children is the same thing that has happened to many other children. The likes that you are helping today to fix, to recover, to restore. Have that dialogue. Keep it open. Make sure that your children know that they can trust you. Nowadays you can't trust anybody. Can they? Can't trust anybody now. Why? Because this is the world of consumers and suppliers. Everyone's just after something else from somebody else, not caring what it's going to do to them. For as long as I get what I want, to hell with you. That's how people think. To hell with you as long as I get what I want from you. It's really sad that we have to talk about these things, isn't it? In a Sugati world, in a human world, where we've come to attain Nibbana, a chance we've all had to come and attain Nibbana, we are today having to talk about stopping children from being abused by sex and drugs. I wouldn't mind if I was talking to a bunch of dogs. That would be okay. But no, I'm talking to humans. And we are having to talk about sex and drugs. What a pity. What a shame. Not that you're engaged in any of that. I know that you're not because of the Dhamma. But I'm saying your children are still young. They're going into a world which is so dangerous. Extremely dangerous. So have those conversations, particularly those people listening online. So keep them with the Dhamma for as much as you possibly can. Bring them along to sermons. Of course, remind them how you have to behave during a sermon, because otherwise it can be distracting, not just to them but others as well, and that could do them more harm than good. But bring them along. Give them the opportunity to receive what it is you're receiving. What changed your life is only what's going to change their life. Nothing else. The Buddha can't save you. The Sangha can't save you. It's the Dhamma that's going to save you. All the Buddha and the Sangha are doing are bringing the Dhamma into your lives. That's all. This is like a sandwich. 2 slices of bread. In the middle is the yummy stuff. The cheese and bacon and tomato, that's in the middle. On the either side is the slices of bread. Well, to eat the cheese, lettuce and tomato and bacon, you need the 2 slices of sandwich, the 2 slices of bread. That's what the Buddha and the Sangha are. But what you need is the Dhamma. Okay. So on that note, we will conclude the sermon then. English? Sinhala today? English. Do you have any questions from what we talked about today? Okay. So what's the homework for this week? Do the opposite of what your ego says. Be stubborn, not with other people, but with your ego. Whenever someone complains, whenever someone blames you, don't be the one who talks back. Children, you shouldn't do that anyway with your parents. Full stop. But even in your families, right? Husbands, wives, don't talk back. At least try it out for a week. See what happens. You'll be impressed by what you can do at the end of that week. If you try it out, you will be so impressed, I guarantee. At the end of that week, you will feel like you're on top of the world. Kanti paramang tapo titikka. The Buddha said, Kanti is ivasima, patience. Practice patience. This is a practice that beats all other practices. Practice patience. Nibbanang paramang vadanti Buddha. Buddha has come into this world to preach Nibbana. Nahi pabbajito parupagati. Pabbajita. So he speaks of the monks. But can you not apply this to yourselves? I'm a monk in mind as well as in body. What can you be? In mind. Nothing can stop you from that. Be a monk in mind. Be a nun in mind. Your mind can mind transformation. There are no restrictions. Nahi pabbajito parupagati. Para is the others. Parupagati. To insult others, to offend others. A pabbajita never does that. A monk never offends others. Never insults others, never abuses others. Samano hoti parang vihete antu. To be a sramana, you have to practice vihimsa or avihimsa. Non-violence. Being kind, being generous to others. But where's the start of this? Patience. See how patient you are. If you are serious about Nibbana, then there mustn't be a limit to your patience. So practice. So that's your homework for this week. I'll ask you next week how it went. You better come with some examples. Okay. So we'll chant the Arya Maitri for a moment and we'll conclude the sermon there. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of birth, freed from the fire of decay, freed from the fire of illness, freed from the fire of death, freed from the fire of sorrow, freed from the fire of lamentation, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fire of suffering, freed from the fire of discontentment, freed from the fire of exhaustion, freed from the fire of disappointment, freed from the fire of clinging on to the five aggregates, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the suffering of samsara, freed from the disease of samsara, freed from the fear of samsara, freed from the fire of samsara, freed from the burning of samsara, freed from the sorrow of samsara, freed from the lust of samsara, freed from the clutches of samsara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. The karma worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the karma worlds. The Rupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Rupa worlds. The Arupa worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from the Arupa worlds. All worlds are in despair. May I and all beings be freed from all the worlds. Nibbana is the only salvation. May all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Letting go is the only salvation. May I and all beings let go. Detachment is the only salvation. May I and all beings be detached. Being freed is the only salvation. May I and all beings be freed. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. Nibbana is the only salvation. May I and all beings attain Nibbana. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the bondage of lust, freed from the bondage of aversion, freed from the bondage of delusion, freed from the bondage of Mara, healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, 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 healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana. Okay. We have started some meditation programs at the monastery, excuse me, which is open to, I wouldn't say the general public, because I don't think the general public can bear 8 hours of meditation. But for you who've been listening to sermons for a period of time, I would say at least 6 months, you can come along and join those meditation programs. We've already done one, and today is the start of another program that will continue for a week. So it's Monday to Friday, which concludes with Guru Swami Wahanse's Deshana or sermon on Saturday. And it starts on a Sunday evening, so that the inauguration sermon will commence in a little while, and there may be some of you who will be joining us as well. So throughout the course of that week, every evening there will be a sermon delivered by one of our monks who has a good understanding of the Dhamma. And throughout the day, you will be practicing meditation with Guru Swami Wahanse as well as other monks. And there will be generally 2 or 2.5 hour long sessions with about half an hour to maybe 45 minutes break in between. But generally through the course of the day, you will get through about 6 to 8 hours of meditation. But those meditation sessions will be guided meditation. But when I say guided, it doesn't mean you'll be chanting what I'll be saying. That's not guided. That's not guided meditation. That's guided recitation, not meditation. Meditation is where you contemplate on the Dhamma. You have to contemplate on it. I can only show you. You have to walk. Walking the path is up to each and every one of us to do individually. So during those sessions, we will start off by giving you a karmasthana. We'll talk to you about the Nyaya Dharma, the doctrine, about anicca dukkha anatta, about the vexatious nature of rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vijnana, and so on. Whatever it might be at that point in time. And then you will have some time to contemplate on that, reflect on that, for about half an hour maybe. So at the start of the week, the instruction will be more frequent. But as the week progresses, you will be left to practice more. There will be more time for you to do your own practice. But again, it will be guided meditation. You will have the privilege of having Guru Swamin Wahanse here all throughout the program. So it's open to you if you wish to join, but we have to take names before we can allow you to come in, because there's only limited resources that we have for everything. So if you're interested, then please give your name to Dharam Dhamma Swamin Wahanse, who's the monk who looks after public affairs, if I may use that term. So he'll generally be found in the Dhanashala. If you're interested, you can do that. Or you can contact the telephone number that you might have for the monastery and inform them about your interest. But they'll ask you if you have been listening to sermons. You better tell the truth. Otherwise, you're going to find the time you spend here is going to be very painful, because you wouldn't know what to do. If you have no understanding of the Dhamma, you wouldn't know what to do. You'd be sat here with your eyes closed, and after a little while you're going to start falling asleep, and you'll be, after the first couple of days, you will be like, when can I go home? So don't do that unto yourself. If you've been listening to sermons regularly and you understand the Dhamma, then it's time to take it up a gear. Take it up a notch. Because we don't have all the time in the world to get this done, do we? Well, ask yourselves. You should know. We don't have all the time in the world. And in future, the still programs that we have on Wednesday will be a meditation program. So for those who have duties, responsibilities and engagements, who can't commit a week-long, who can't make a week-long commitment, you can come along to Wednesday's programs. We'll announce the day, not just yet, but we'll announce the day. And in those, on Wednesdays, it will be a meditation program. So from start to end, you'll observe still, as you do normally, but during the day it will be a meditation program. Again, guided meditation, not guided recitation, guided meditation. Because otherwise you're just saying what I'm saying. What's the point of that? A parrot can do that. Petapu. Parrot can do that. You're not parrots. You're human beings. So, just to let you know, these opportunities are available to you. Make use of them, should you choose to. Okay. So, before we conclude the sermon, then let us transfer merits, and we will bring the sermon to an end. First and foremost, as we did at the beginning, let us take a moment to reflect on the fact that it is because of the supremely enlightened Buddha, the perfect one, the infinitely compassionate Supreme Buddha, that we have the gift of Dhamma today. It is because he sacrificed himself over many countless eons in samsara that we have the gift of Dhamma today, in which we can seek salvation and redemption from the shackles of samsara. Let us also spare a moment and spare a thought for the bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas who throughout the generations from the time of the Buddha all the way up until now protected and preserved the Dhamma in the form of the Tripitaka and passed it down to us through the generations. It is thanks to them that today we have the Tripitaka, which we can study, we can analyze, we can contemplate on and reflect on in order to redeem ourselves from samsara. So, May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits, they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes, be born in the blissful planes, and may through the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all members of the Mahasangha, wherever they may be throughout this world. They're all members of the Mahasangha who have dedicated their lives to practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and attaining the bliss of Nibbana that was taught to them, expounded to them by the Supreme Buddha. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, particularly sparing a moment to transfer merits to the members of the Mahasangha as well as the bhikkhus and the nuns who are resident in your local temples, in your local nunneries, wherever it is that you may be residing. It is they who have always been by your side, been through rain and shine, been through the thick times and hard times in your life, been through the good times and bad, and providing the Dhammapasala education for your children and so on and so forth. It is them who have always been with you. Although you have come along today to this monastery to listen to sermons, make offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, do not forget that it is them who have always been by your side. So may they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, and the dead that we started at the start of this sermon, as well as mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, nieces, grandparents, and so on that we have had not just in this birth but also in our previous births. All those countless beings in countless births in samsara who have been to our help, support, and assistance, who have always been by our side, helping us, supporting us, shaping our lives for better. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. If any of them have been born in the woeful planes, may through the power of these merits, they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes, be born in the blissful planes, may through the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those who have made this event possible, perhaps by inviting you to be here, perhaps by offering you transport, or perhaps by ushering you to a seat, or maybe by offering you a glass of water, whatever, whoever might have done to help make your stay here comfortable and pleasurable, and making your listening experience comfortable in any way, shape or form. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those monks and anagarikas who have spent a lot of energy and time in decorating this stage as an offering to the Dhamma, as well as making your stay here as comfortable as they possibly can, as well as taking the time to stream these sermons online and make them available to our online listeners wherever in the world they may be. It is thanks to them as well as their effort and the technology that is available to us, as well as those benefactors who have made generous donations to make such comforts, make such resources available so that listeners all over the world are able to listen to these sermons and be able to attain Nibbana, be able to do so. So may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May through the power of these merits they be abstained from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Also let us take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who fought a long and bloody war in Sri Lanka. They sacrificed their lives to protect and preserving our motherland. It is thanks to them that today we can live in peace and harmony. We are able to have the time as well as the peace of mind to practice the Dhamma. It is thanks to them that we are able to do so. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those men and women who might have lost their lives during the war, be friend or foe. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Also take a moment to transfer merits to those men and women who might have lost their lives in natural calamities and disasters such as the tsunamis, not just in Sri Lanka but also in other countries. They may be friend or foe or perhaps acquaintances, but perhaps the majority of them are not acquaintances of yours. But do not forget for a moment that there is not a single being in samsara who has not been a mother or a father to you in this infinitely long journey in samsara. So every man, every woman, every child who might have lost their lives, who might have been destitute as a result of such calamities, have been a mother, been a father to you in this infinitely long journey in samsara. So may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us pass on those merits as a payback for all that they have done for us throughout this infinitely long journey in samsara. This is our opportunity to pay back those debts that we owe them. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful planes, they be able to redeem themselves from those woeful planes and be born in the blissful planes. May through the power of these merits, they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women who have dedicated their lives to leading this country, protecting this country, developing this country. It is thanks to them that today you and I have the freedom of time and peace of mind to practice the path, practice the Dhamma, and redeem ourselves from samsara. If not for them, you and I will today have to be leading this country. You and I today will have to be developing this country and protecting and preserving this country. It is thanks to them that we have the freedom of time and peace of mind to do this. Therefore, may they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. May, through the power of these merits, they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired today in preaching the Dhamma, in listening to the Dhamma, in making this event possible and in contributing to this, to the success of this event in any way, shape or form, whatever capacity you might have had, as well as making offerings to the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, preparations that you might have done in preparation, in readiness for today, all those chittas, every single one of them, all that merit that we have all acquired towards this program, towards this today's event, may through the power of all those merits that we have all acquired today, men and women throughout the world, people just like yourselves, be empowered to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, and through their practice may we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Mahanses on this blessed land in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And may you and I and everyone who has contributed and come together to make this event possible and joined us in any way, shape or form, be able to become one of those Arahatun Mahanses, one of those Arahat Mehenin Mahanses in this very birth itself, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginning nidetva, dvesha ginning nidetva, moha ginning nidetva, Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. Nibbana parama sukhayen sukhita taravetva. තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ වලින් සීල ලෝක සීල සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all forever. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.